look around esports websites, or you read threads, or you go on Twitter, or you listen to videos from people who are industry people, even sometimes not industry people, they're talking about the topic of esports, you'll repeatedly hear this phrasing over and over again. It'll be different variants of it, and it goes like this: if we want esports to get bigger, ... and then you insert whatever bullshit you're trying to sell there, or whatever thing that annoys you there, or whatever thing you want changing there. You put it there as if like, well, you agree with this premise, right? You want esports to get bigger, you want it to be a big thing, you want it to be a real sport, you want your mom and dad to think you're not a loser, right? Hey, well, you better do this thing here then. That guy has to go, or we have to do things this way, or I don't like that, or why hasn't this happened yet? Now, there's a different variant of it. If it is like, this is the reason why esports isn't big, or no wonder esports isn't big, ... because of this guy, or because it's not done this way, or because I think this should be the way it is done. And it's actually become something where the majority of the time I see this phrase or these variants, it never is anything that actually would make esports bigger, has any actual provable, tangible link to making esports bigger, or what is actually holding it back. It's nearly always done as a stupid complaint, but unfortunately to other people who don't know about the industry of esports, or what is making it big, or has made it big in the past, or will make it bigger, they actually start to pick up on this, and they start to repeat the same thing, or they think there's some logic behind it, and it's actually become esports equivalent of that famous thing in like American culture where people say, so we can put a man on the moon, but ... And then in their version, again, a similar analogy here, they're not really saying anything connected to the totally abstract concept of NASA putting a fucking man on the moon using government dollars. Theirs will always be like, so you're telling me we can put a man on the moon, but this deli I'm in can't make a good pastrami on rye with mustard? Like, well, yeah, well, that has no connection, does it, mate? NASA doesn't fucking fund that from government money. We're not racing against the Soviets to get you a good pastrami and rye. In fact, the quality of pastrami and rye sandwiches doesn't even have much to do with the era you're in, or scientific and technological advances through history. So in the same way, I could very easily, and any of us could break down that obvious complaint, that we could all break down the esports, if we want esports to be bigger, one, if we actually looked at it within that context. The problem is people don't have the same understanding of the context behind history to understand why that's so silly as a phrase. Or crucially, just to acknowledge it like I am here, that I even get why people do it in the same way that the guy does it about the man on the moon there. It's really just a frustration. It's just a complaint. It's even a sort of, in its own funny way, sort of a witty way to just say like, oh, so they can't do this. It's funny in its own way. But if you actually took it as a literal statement, it's ridiculous. It's totally abstract. It doesn't make any sense. There's no tangible connection to the world, the man on the moon and the sandwich, in the same way as if we want esports to be bigger, then that person has to stop doing that thing that only I particularly dislike in a subjective manner and hasn't been proven in any way to be what's stopping sponsors getting more involved, making it, and more people joining in and following esports because they can't understand. There's no connection there whatsoever. So you have to either make that connection or just acknowledge it's a silly thing like that. And the reason why I bring this up is because the topic of making esports bigger is one that ties into a lot of different things within esports that all themselves might be disparate. And so one area that annoys me is when everyone's talking about let's make esports bigger, part of the reason why you can get away with saying that line and then throw in any bullshit that you want there, any idea or propaganda or thing you want the community to accept, is because, truthfully, none of us really know what's going to make esports bigger. As in, purely and definitely. If we did, people would probably have done it and it would be much bigger quicker than it was now. Instead, making esports bigger is sort of like making a community on the internet. So making Reddit or Dig, or even making websites that used to be big. So something like in the past we used to have SK Gaming or Gotfrag or Read, these different sites. Even the people who make these sites don't 100% know why they get bigger. There's a degree to which you do things which make sense and you study what's going on, you analyse, you look for trends, you try and shape some things that you want to do in line with what people seem to want and what seems to be working, and even sometimes what people say they don't want but actually it turns out they do. Like they say they don't want drama, but maybe they do want some drama, maybe they want it a particular way with certain people. You figure all these things out, you put them in place, and gradually you can start to get towards. It won't be like starting here and then success is up here. It won't just be like a graph like that. It'll be more like up, down, up, down, up, down. But you'll gradually, eventually, if you put a line through it, it will be going up as a curve. So that's kind of what people do with these things. So the point is, no one really knows what will make esports bigger. But we can definitely know that some of the smaller things that people are complaining about actually will have a negligible or no effect on it whatsoever. And so it's pointless to frame those as the things that are holding it back. The reason why I make this point now, because I'm not just going to keep this abstract, is because there are things that all of us, everyone watching this video right now, could do right this minute to make esports bigger in a very small, very tangible way that would add up, and over this growth of time, that's not even a word, grandth of time, over a gradual period of time would have an effect on esports. And these are small things, and they're not going to cost us money or do any of these things, okay? I'll give you an example of what's kind of spurred me to think about this, okay? People in esports will often use, I'll tie myself into a concept that's not to do with me, okay? So one of my own cases is when I do talk shows or I do interviews and my tone is abrasive, or it's a little bit aggressive, or I guess the political word would be like I'm overly enthusiastic sometimes on certain topics. People might say something like, well, if we want esports to get bigger, we need to get past people like him who are like that. We need like people who are like friendlier, and they work with the player more, and they're not aggressive, and they give the people what they want. It's not uncomfortable or any of that stuff. And people will put it out there like that, as though if someone came along with like an identical skill set to what I've got, but just didn't do any of the stuff they don't like about what I do, then my stuff would be bigger. Esports would be big. Like the whole thing would have a knock-on effect. Now the problem with this is, I've never seen an example of it. I've never seen the example of someone doing the stuff that I do, but without that barrier, apparently, that people don't like, and then becoming even more successful and just having an awesome time. I've never seen it. First of all, without making this into a side topic, it's not going to be about me. I could make the point that to get to the position I am with my particular subjective kind of skills and way of thinking about the world also comes with the way I think about it and the way I express it. That's all part of a package. And you can tweak some things, but you're not going to get just someone who's like amazing at all these exact same things that are my particular skills, and some of them are quite unique, but then with none of the other things that are also uniquely idiosyncrasies that I have, okay? So my point I'm making here is a good example of this is we've got a talk show in League of Legends called China Talk. And if you like League of Legends talk shows and you like analysis and you like people with differing opinions but who can have a discussion about it, you like people who are not afraid to say opinions that are unpopular but they can break it down and articulate it and give point-by-point cases and have people bring them up on a point and they can have a response to it. If you want all this stuff, this would be your favorite show. This would be the #1 show in the world. It's not about Korea that much, but it's about China, which until recently was the #2 region in the world, might even become the #1 region now that these Koreans have gone there. Now here's the problem. That show doesn't have huge personalities who the community are really polarizing. You know, who reminding you of anything here, who people either think like are pretty good or they're like, oh, when I saw, I hate that guy. Doesn't have any of that stuff. Just has all the stuff that people who don't like my sort of stuff, at least they say they don't, claim that they would want. They would want a show like that, but devoid of the drama or the aggression or any of that stuff. They just want the analysis and let's just make it, where's the insight on summoning insight? Mate, it's on this show. Go watch this show then. You must love it. Oh, what's that? You don't like it? It's not interested. It's boring. It's about China and that. Yes. And here's the problem. You don't have to like China Talk. If it's not for you, fuck it. Who cares? It's not for you. I'm not forcing anyone to like it. But it's not that people look at it and go, I'm not interested in China, which is a perfectly legitimate opinion, or you know what, the show's boring to me. They don't just look at it and go like that when they see it on Reddit. What they do is they downvote it. They say, you know what, that actually shouldn't even be on Reddit. In fact, you know what, I don't want anyone else on this Reddit to even see that. If it's up to me on my little area of the world, I don't even want them to get the chance to see it. They should be as bored as I am. This should not even exist. These people should not make any money. That's essentially what you're saying with that downvote there. It doesn't fit here. It's not appropriate. No one else here should see it. No one else should. They definitely shouldn't make any money because I don't think they deserve to make any money off it. So it's not that it's just ignored. If people just didn't like it and they just ignored it, fair enough. If people just didn't upvote it, which is the same thing as ignoring it. Okay, that's fine. Upvote something else you like instead. That's now one ahead of the thing that you don't like. You've already taken your impact on it and given your opinion there. But to actually downvote it is like really, I mean, I hate to use the word, but that's toxic behavior. That is behavior that is corrosive to good things, to good qualities in our community and people doing hard work and putting themselves out there. You're actually having a corrosive effect. You're eroding the good things that they're doing and preventing them from having success and all the rest of it. The reason why this is crucial is because this is holding back esports journalism, this sort of behavior. Because here's the knock-on effect you as one little person can have by upvoting quality content or just not downvoting it. Because not downvoting it means you just don't, it's not that you've put it up by not downvoting, you've done nothing. You've just stopped it from making it even harder to get anywhere because you're not like piling on and downvoting it down. So then like 2 times more people have to push it to get it anywhere. If you were to upvote quality content, and let's say in an idealistic world, it's stuff that you're not particularly into, but you look at it and you go, I can see they've put some work into that. I can see it's quality stuff. Here's the knock-on effect. Follow the track here. So that piece will get higher on Reddit, which means that more other people are likely to see it and they might upvote it if they also like it. Now, if it gets higher on Reddit and it gets clicks and it gets more upvotes, it's going to get more hits. Now, if the site that it's on gets more hits, it gets more direct ad revenue just from those people visiting the site or visiting the video. Now, if it gets more ad revenue, if it can build up a sustainable amount of ad revenue, like a consistent chart across graphs, I'm saying graphs, consistent chart across months of metrics, then the ad revenue itself can go up. So now the same amount of hits is giving them more money for the same amount of hits because the revenue's gone up on the CPM of the 1,000 hits that they get. Now, if the ad revenue goes up and the sales rate goes up and the hits go up, there's more money directly to the author, there's more money directly to the site, there's more money for the site to potentially actually pay more authors, bring on more writers, bring on more content creators. They can all make more. The site as itself, as a whole, is getting more attention. So this person being successful on this part of the site, which is under one umbrella, allows this person now to have more exposure from people going to his and seeing his, or people are being aware of the brand and going, okay, well, I trusted that brand on these last 3 pieces. I'll give this one a try here. All of these things just from one person. Obviously, be realistic. It's one person, but the idea is if a lot of people each took this one tiny little act that costs them nothing, would have this effect. And we could make not only esports journalism in League of Legends in this tiny little area of like China Talk or something like that, a piece like that. I'm purposely not using an example of me because I have hits and there's different factors going on in my work. But just a little piece like this, we'd make that bigger. And then that would be better for everyone. And they could have more money, more opportunity. We could get more people involved. People would be more interested in coming on the show when it has more hits. Same thing. We go like that. We can make it bigger and bigger. And just from the tiny little area of esports journalism, we're making esports itself bigger. As the journalism gets bigger, the more quality stuff. That, if you want esports to get bigger, that's going to draw more people in. The hardcore people are following more stuff. And then with the hardcore, there's more people also who are in position to do work for the more casual people. And then eventually you get people who are in position to do work for even the most mainstream people, which brings attention in. And now esports itself is getting bigger here. So let's keep going with this concept. A really good example of the other end of this spectrum, okay? So there was the China Talk problem where they're having issues down here. It's an awesome show, really good content, great for super hardcore people, but even for casual people who just want to know what's going on, to me, it's the perfect content, and it's not doing well. Now then, let's go to a really high-end example of someone who seems to be doing fabulously well and who's actually about as casual as it comes when it comes to esports journalism, which is this guy, Harold Goldberg. And for anyone who doesn't know, he wrote this article in Playboy magazine, which is about Cloud9, and he followed them to a bunch of different locations, and he did the article like you'd want a mainstream article to be done. And it was a good article. Actually, one of the better mainstream articles I've seen. But here's the problem. In this scenario, because the world he's coming from is like top down, like he's coming from the mainstream, the heavens, he's like descended down to esports, like, my children, I have come to you and I will bring to you the mainstream acceptance that you want. And we're all like, Harold, thank you, please, we just want, tell us that esports will be there one day. Like, I'm being a bit facetious there, but you get kind of the point I'm saying. That's the way people looked at it. Like, even if this guy's article had been 60% as good, I can tell from experience of seeing this happen before, people would have been falling over themselves trying to find a way to say it was amazing and was brilliant and fawning over this guy. Oh, are you really into esport? I've heard you even played some League, and did you like Meteos? Are you going to do more about it? Maybe you could write about TSM next. Listen, I love the enthusiasm, but it's a bit misplaced here because we're selling all of this out. We're selling out ourselves in a sense to someone who's only shown a little bit of interest, while other people who actually have talent and needs to be nurtured and it needs to be given the attention it deserves, and they will do a lot more and they're in it for the long haul, they're just getting neglected as like, well, who cares about you? It's the disproportion that's the problem. It's not that we shouldn't give praise to these people. I've told you that's a good article, one of the better mainstream ones I've seen about League of Legends actually, but people went the other way and they went way overboard with it, and it was top of the Reddit and people were going crazy about it. And so he made this Kickstarter, okay, which is going to be a prickly topic, okay, amongst any esports creators, because most esports content creators, again, I'm not talking about myself here, a lot of them don't make much money. A lot of the content creators you're thinking of right now, who aren't the huge names, okay, so there's maybe 4 or 5 big names, the ones below that, a lot of them might be cracking like $3,000 in a whole year, maybe not even that. Some might be at like ridiculous figures, like $1,000 for the whole year for all the work they've done. These people, it's understandable why they'd be frustrated, etc. Some of their complaints might go overboard and sound a bit bitter, but they have reason to be okay. Now, the reason why it's a bit distasteful, the way that Kickstarter was done, listen, first of all, I'll just make this case. I don't care about the Kickstarter. I'm totally open, this guy can do it, and you can fund it if you want. That's not an issue. I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I just found the way it was done a bit distasteful, because as soon as I saw it, I made a Reddit post, so I'll play out the same scenario. And this is the way I really thought about it when I saw the premise put forward's okay. Now, if I was really fancy at editing, or if I just knew anything about editing, I'd like cut it like a proper YouTube video. So I'd appear on this side when I was one guy, and then I'd appear on this side when I was the other. But instead, I'll just turn like that. That's my editing, okay? So here's the way the esports community in Thorin's world should have reacted when the Harold Goldberg guy came along like this. Okay. Hi, I'm Harold Goldberg. I write for some very well-known and popular mainstream publications, Playboy, The Times of New York. Have you ever heard of these? This is the esports community on this side. Like, wow, awesome. Playboy, The New York Times of New York. I've definitely heard of those. That sounds awesome. I'm actually starting to write about esports. I just wrote a piece here. I'm sure you guys would be into it. It's about esports, about one of your favorite teams. Wow, that's amazing, that is. Yeah, no, that's great. That's one of the best mainstream pieces I've seen in a long time, actually. I'm glad you're in the community for a while. I wonder if you'll do anything else. Speaking of which, I will do something else, but before I do it, I'm going to need everyone in the community to like raise a stack, raise a nice fat stack of cash. And if you give me that, like as an advance, then I'll do it. And listen, like it'll cost a lot of money. Like I need to go to all these places and there are costs and it totally makes sense. You know, like I do need some sort of budget to do this. And if you do that, then I'll write about esports again. Okay, but don't you come from like the mainstream? Like in the mainstream, you just said you write for Playboy, Times of New York. Like wouldn't those companies fund such a project if it was going to be like really good and it'd have some sort of benefit and it'd have some marketable value, you know? Or, you know, maybe not even them. Like, I don't know. I'm just an esports guy. I don't know much about the business, but I believe like writers usually have like literary agents who can maybe like get deals with them from a publisher and they just submit. It doesn't cost much actually to get the advance. What you do, you submit like a treatment, like it's a couple of paragraphs outlining what it would be about and what the reason why it might be successful. And then if the publisher, whose job it is to know what would be successful, actually thinks it would be, then he'll say, okay, I'll give you this advance of this much to be able to write the book and support yourself and go around the world and do all that stuff. So if you come from that world with all these connections, then why don't you do that instead of asking us for the money? Did you hear the part about when I wrote for Playboy? You know that famous magazine? I wrote for that. Okay. Right, that's how I probably should have just ended the joke a bit earlier. I'll let it deflate a bit, but you see what I mean? That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. So let's go through that point by point then. He can do his project. I don't have any problem with it, but it's that tone of like, okay, so I've got the legitimacy, I've got the acceptance. I am a mainstream guy. Everyone's like, awesome, yeah, great, mainstream, got all that. But I don't have any way to fund this, and I need you guys to give me all the money. But not only that, I need like a load of the money up front, like, and then once I have that up front. Yes. Are we like stockholders in this project? No. You just pay for it, and then I'll actually try and sell it as like a book maybe one day, or who knows? Maybe I could like actually, what's the word for it? Serialize it in a magazine myself, and then I'll make actually a lot more money off that myself. Like, you see what I mean? Like, I don't have any issue if people want to fund these things. But first of all, there's no accountability, as we saw with shit like fucking Sons of StarCraft and stuff, and the other projects in StarCraft where people pay tons and tons, like $50,000 for fucking documentaries that never came out or quite clearly were not used using $50,000. Like, there's no actual thing at the end. So all I'm saying here is, listen, you can do it, you can subscribe for it, but I'm definitely allowed to make the case that this is a bit distasteful. I also don't really understand what the point is here, and why is everyone so jazzed up about this when I don't really understand what the point is. So that's another question. What is the point of that article? Just to make this specific for a second. Is he writing from a mainstream perspective? Because that's the thing. The article there was a great article for a mainstream concept. Is he writing about this article on this book or whatever? Is it going to be like a mainstream approach to it? If so, why the fuck would I, as an esports person, or you, be funding it? If you ever read those mainstream things, the reason why they're not super awesome, right, is because it's all shit you know, sometimes usually a little bit inaccurate, usually a bit characterized and caricatured and twisted a little bit and tried to make seem a little bit cooler here, or pushed a narrative a bit too much there and crowbarred one guy into a popular archetype, and it's never quite that on point. But you think to yourself, yeah, but it's for people who don't know about games and they don't know about esports, and they're trying to find a hook for that guy. So there's all these caveats to even why it's cool. So if it's done for the mainstream, then why would we fund it? It's not even for us. It's not even going to be that good for us. And is it really then going to go, take the money from the esports, thanks, did the work, guys, and then just go to other people who didn't fund it and just give to them? Is that really the approach? Now then, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's for us. If it's for us, then why is this guy the guy that we need to do it? Now listen, again, let's go back to that concept before. People can fund this if they want, that's fine. Other people can do their own. And yeah, if someone's an esports journalist, yeah, go for it, mate. Do your own. Hopefully someone will fund yours. I'm not saying he shouldn't do it. If he thinks he can have a crack at it, go for it. But I'm saying, why would we fund it? Like, that's the point. He can't do the hardcore version that's just for us and that's designed for all the people who know, oh, wow, I didn't know. And so that's where Meteos' way of thinking about jungle pathing came from. That's really how he did. And he actually once saw a movie where a character said this and that made him think like, maybe I could do something different. There's going to be none of that shit in this thing, okay? So in that particular scenario, actually, that's where the problem comes in. Because when people draw the contrast, they don't just talk about the Harold Goldberg example on his own. They'll start saying Harold Goldberg versus esports journalist X, who will usually be a famous person, you know, Richard Lewis, Travis, whoever, Slasher, whoever it might be. They'll start comparing. And this is where the problems came on this particular topic. Because on one hand, they'll compare in the sense of like, oh, well, he's from the mainstream, so he has like a better education, he has more tenure, more experience doing mainstream stuff, so he'll be a better quality of writer. For mainstream stuff, you're probably right. You'll probably be able to do much better writing for the mainstream style of writing, magazine article style of writing, feature piece, than some of these esports people. But that's if it's for the mainstream. If it's for the hardcore people, I can tell you right now, as someone who has more experience in esports, more tenure in esports, has read a lot more, has written a lot more, actually those people in esports, shock horror, will be better at that sort of writing. That is what they do every day of their lives for the last 5, 10, 15 years, whereas this guy is just transitioning into that period. Maybe in time he's got a good head start. Maybe he could become better. He isn't right now. These people are better. So the problem there becomes people made this case where I heard a prominent figure in our community say, yeah, but here's the thing. Those people won't write at the same level of quality as this person will. Okay, let's just logically go through that for a second. So the Harold Goldberg guy will write this book at a level of quality that he needs $5,000 to fund, because to get to that level of quality, he has to go to exotic locations, maybe he needs equipment, he needs to live for a while, do all this stuff, maybe he needs 6 months of his time, 3 months of his time to write this awesome piece. He needs all that to be able to do that and then deliver at this quality. Okay. Why can't someone from our community do that? Well, they can't write at that quality. Well, they haven't been given $5,000. All the equipment, the months, the access from the team, all that. How do you know they can't do that? That is a ridiculous statement to make. Yes, you can't assume they can when they haven't done anything, but you also can't say that they can't. You can't say that they're incapable of that quality. That is a ridiculous way to do it if you logically go through the process. Because guess what? The Harold Goldberg guy can't do it without all that money and without all that opportunity, without all that help and everything else. And so that is an issue when you frame it that way, because you're actually belittling and limiting esports journalism itself. Just because this guy's descended from the heavens of, oh, well, of course the mainstream are capable of things we never are. Well, is it a real sport then? Is it big? Is it all the rest of it? Because apparently you, guys in the community, even figureheads, don't believe it is. Apparently, the second someone comes along with like a fucking golden badge, like, I once wrote for Hustler, you're like, what? He must know everything better than everyone. Pack it up, guys. You're just amateurs. This is the real pro. Give him the money. Get a fucking bag with a $sign on. Just throw it all at him. No, don't worry that he's only done one piece. Give him everything. Like, it's a ridiculous. It's just a bit distasteful, okay? You do it if you want. People do distasteful things all the time. People walk around with a fucking thong hanging out the back of their ass. They could do it. I'm not banning them from doing it. I'm just saying I'm not into it, okay? And that's my opinion. That's my right to express myself that way. So that, unfortunately, the way that was done, I actually don't think this guy's milking the industry. I don't think that's some cynical thing. I think he genuinely is a guy with some skills who thought to himself, you know what, I could write a longer thing here, but it'd be ridiculous for me to do it for free in this, and I'm not even part of this community. Why would I do it all that? So if I can get the money together, I'll do it. That's fine. It's the community reaction to this. It's the reaction of even head people who, I use this annoying phrase, should know better. Like, they're the ones who are giving a bad name to esports. The way they just fawned and crawling over each other like, please, mainstream acceptance. I just want to believe that esports is real. Like, that's the problem I don't get about this whole thing. In fact, here's a funny point I'll make. It actually is a good sign that this guy's involved in this way, and even doing it in kind of like a mildly, I think indirectly cynical way of like, give me all the money and then I'll do it, and I'll do it this way because, you know, I'm from the mainstream and look at my legitimacy. The reason why that's actually in a weird way good is it actually does show that esports is getting bigger, because about 5-10 years ago, almost no one would have even wasted time trying to exploit this industry. Like the guy who's doing the fucking African scamming, where he, like the Nigerian guy, like I am a prince who wants to get the money out of the country. he's going to be wasting his time if he's sending that email out to people from Africa itself. Like, he's not sending that to the guy next door to him. Like, if you give me the millions, then I'll... Because that guy can't pay him. He's sending those emails to the comparatively rich white idiot who's like, oh, cool, a little tip. I could get this money out. Like, you have to know your audience. So the fact that people even are coming forwards and thinking they could raise 5,000 for a book or 50,000 for a documentary is a sign that esports is getting bigger. You don't need to fall over yourselves to give them all this stuff. Just that alone, it shows there's a mechanism there where these people believe it's bigger or it's got some legitimacy or it's going somewhere. So let's talk now about the topic of mainstream acceptance. So listen, there's going to be things from the mainstream that are going to get overly accepted and people are going to grab onto and latch onto in this particular way that I totally get. And by the way, that is also a sign that it's getting bigger as well. So for example, obviously I don't give a fuck about the band Imagine Dragons. I've never even heard of them before. I get that people think it's cool and all that. If you like their music, that's fine. It's the people who I could tell didn't really or were borderline, but just cause it was involved with LoL, they were like, hey, look, hey, my friends who Imagine Dragons are awesome. Yeah, this is the best thing ever. Like, listen, that happens in real sports. Like, I remember that in the fucking NBA have signed up for the NBA and NHL have done a ton with like mainstream acts that were just shit, and you were just like, come on, man, the people who are hardcore into hockey can't be into this. Like, I remember the NBA one year had like the fucking Black Eyed Peas or something doing like the music for the commercial, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, that, yeah, obviously that's not like hardcore music for the fans or whatever, but I get it that that's what's going on. The real problem here is that it's every aspect of the spectrum of esports is falling over itself to reach out to this mainstream and just beg for the acceptance and please and just accept any little morsel that they offer. It goes from the fans to the players to the teams to the event organizers themselves. Here's the thing, okay, before I get into like some examples of those, if you really think that esports is a valid pastime, if you think that it's something that is real, it's a real thing to do, it's not a joke, if you think it's legitimate, like it's actually something that has validity and merit in its own rights, then you don't need someone who has no connection to it to look at it and say, I think that's valid and real and legitimate. That is unnecessary. That's seeking validation externally that you don't need. If it really has all those things, and it's real, it's tangible, then you don't need it. You can just hold on to that and go, I have it. And in fact, if you're a mainstream guy who doesn't connect, like those guys at ESPN who are like, I don't think it's a real sport, who gives a fuck? I don't follow your sport, mate. I don't give a shit what you think. You stay in your little place and have fun. We're going to get bigger and do our own shit over here. And then one day, who knows, maybe you'll be looking in like, oh, I made a mistake there. That doesn't matter either. You're saying that to me now isn't an issue either. I did my own shit. It was real. Didn't need your help. Did it on our own. That's the thing. The people within our own industry, fans, players, teams, organizers, by jumping all over this stuff like this and getting onto latching onto any little thing. I mean, at this point, I'm not even exaggerating here. I think at this point, if the fucking insane clown posse and like fucking, what's his name? What the fuck is in it? Young Lean, like that dog shit rapper, like Lil B or someone. If these people got involved, I bet you like IEM or someone would let him do the theme, or like fucking Cloud9 would be like, hey man, I just hung out with Young Lean the other day. He's into Dota 2, man. Like, people would actually like this would, I purposely picked ridiculous names there. People would fawn over these people as well. Yeah, you know, I've always been inspired by little Young Lean's music, the way he came up out of Sweden, said S4 as he was preparing for TI5. Like, come on, man. Like, people go too far with this shit. It beggars belief. And also, that desperation, that whiff of like, oh, please, I'll just grab onto anything to make myself more legitimate. That really does make esports seem like it's not valid, it's not legitimate, it's not real, and it makes it seem like a fucking joke that's trying to just like go like pogs, like some phenomenon, woo, off nowhere to somewhere because it's big and it's the shit that's promoted now. Instead, it's something real that's been growing over all these years, decades, taking time, and it's going to keep going like that. It's not going to just go from here to here. And don't be ridiculous, okay? That's kind of the point I'm making here. But you see it all throughout. Like, if any sports player gets involved and says, oh, I play that, people don't just go, oh, cool. That shows that esports is getting bigger. That even a pro sports player plays it. They'll be like, wow, I'm my #1 fan of that guy from the NBA. And you know what? And then they'll just exaggerate the shit and be like, you know what? I bet he plays it all the time, you know. He's so hardcore in Dota 2. And then they'll have some pro player like, oh, he played me. And you know what? he gave me a run for my money and I better watch out that he doesn't quit the NBA. Ha ha ha. Like, no, he didn't. You fucking destroyed him. He had never had a chance. He's a scrub. He's probably in fucking bronze 4 or some shit like that. Maybe if he duos with you, he could get like silver 2 or something. Like, don't be ridiculous. Again, don't be so desperate. This is like if you're trying to pick up a girl. If you're fucking so desperate for anything, like, oh, really? Wow, cool. Do you think that's awesome? I think you're the best thing ever. You know what that's going to do to the girl? Well, maybe she's some fucking feminazi or something. She's going to be like, oh, yeah, awesome. Now I can control this little beta male. No. But in reality, that's actually going to put the girl off. She's going to be like, you're a bit desperate for me, actually. Like, I'm still getting to know you. Like, yeah, I think you're all right. But, like, we've got to build these feelings up over time. And plus, you don't seem confident in yourself. You don't seem like you believe you're the sort of person who should attract someone who's hot like me. Like, it's actually going to put people off a bit. So just chill, Scrap. Like, you know, play it cool. Slick. Let's just actually believe and have some confidence in ourselves that it's something real. And then here's the thing: mainstream people will start to reach out, but you don't have to grab and latch onto every single one like it's a fucking like you get onto the rope that's hanging out of the last helicopter out of fucking Vietnam. Like believe that other ones will come along. You know what? Bigger bands will come along. More mainstream people will come along. One day it'll be big enough if it's a real thing. In that scenario that I'm imagining, because I think it could be, if it's a real thing, one day someone like Shaq or someone will be like, oh, I was playing Dota 7 the other day, and you know what? We won't make that a middle things and all of it. It'll just be like, well, obviously, it's a really big thing, and a lot of people play it, even famous stars and all that. It'll be relatively just an all right sized thing. You won't have to latch onto everything. You can have a bit of confidence in yourself. Now, here's the thing. Again, I'm going to tie this into a real thing that all the people I've mentioned here could do. In the scenario that all these people are involved in, fans, pro players, teams, event organizers, again, these people can all take action right now that will gradually improve everything in esports and make it bigger from the ground up, not from the top down, hoping we'll get pulled out by fucking David Hasselhoff getting involved with like TI7 or some shit. Like, instead we can go from the ground up and build up the community we've got now and show appreciation to the people we've got now. So here's how. I've already told you with fans you can just upvote content. That's fine. Fans, that'll take care of it. All you have to do sometimes click a little fucking arrow up. That's it. Pro players, if someone writes an interview about you or they do an article about you and you look at it and it doesn't even have to be that you think it's awesome. You can just see they put some effort into it. It's not like, if it's slanderous, obviously don't do anything. If it's rude, well, libelous, I guess would be the exact words there. If it's rude or whatever, yeah, go ahead. But if it's just okay, if they put some effort into it, tweet it. Here's the thing, retweet it. That's the minimum you can do. Tweeting itself is actually better directly because you're giving more acceptance to that. Giving more recognition to it, rather. So tweets, retweets, that's fine. Same with organizations. The number of fucking teams I've seen where if someone writes some like 4-paragraph, very weakly done write-up in like a newspaper local to them, they'll fucking tweet that shit right out. Then I see quality esports work done by other people involving them where they've even put the tweets in there. Maybe they even contact them on Skype like, hey, I just did this piece. And they don't do it. Or they treat it like their tweet is like God's gift to them, like you better be on their side forever and all. I'm not talking about myself here, right? I get by without these people tweeting because I've found my own way and I live in that reality. But this is how you help the smaller people. This is how you make esports bigger from the littlest guy up, from tiny fucking acorns, great oaks can grow, all that bullshit, right? This is how you do it if you're esports orgs. Because it's a bit distasteful to me that you'll whore out your fucking social media, your Facebook, your Twitter, everything for all these other people who are loosely, vaguely connected to esports and maybe have shown a tiny little bit of interest, yet people who are slogging away, who really actually maybe love your team and believe in it and want to show something and create something of value and something lasting and make this more, you're not even going to help those guys out. And again, we're not talking about fucking funding them or giving them any of this shit or even special access. Sometimes we're just talking about tweeting a fucking tweet, man. Same thing with event organizers. The way that if any mainstream person gets involved, they'll give them all kinds of access and special behind-the-scenes stuff. And sometimes it's not even warranted. Like, I've seen guys where they got all this access to certain events that I won't name, where the actual end piece got, like, fuck all views, no attention, no recognition. Meanwhile, actually, if you'd have given the same access to certain famous names in esports, not talking about myself here, others, they would have gotten 5 times as many views. They would have gotten way more interest from the esports community itself. People would have been like, oh, cool, that's really interesting behind the scenes stuff and all the rest of it. Again, don't bow just to the mainstream thing. It's a bunch of bullshit. That's not making esports bigger. You're making esports seem like some little pissant thing where you're willing to latch onto anything as an escape route. Please, I know this isn't real, so I've got to get out now. Please. Like, no, it's legitimate in its own thing. So bring those people in on your own terms when it's right, with a bit of fucking dignity and a bit of self-respect about how you go about it. And things will progress the right way, as they should. That's the thing. I actually do think esports can get bigger. I think it can be big. I think it can be niche, but still be huge because of how many people are in the world. But I don't need it to be. Therefore, I'm not willing to give up everything else within esports and my life and my dignity, my personality, in order for it to be bigger. If it can get bigger on the right way, with the right approach, and without selling out core integral principles and ideals and things that made it cool and made it what it was to ever get to a position to become bigger, if we can do it without selling all that out and become just some simulacrum of what it could have been, then yeah, I'm totally for it going bigger. Because I'm not desperate, because there's no whiff of desperation. That's why, just to tie it into my own life again, I have been able to have this degree of success, and you can put a graph through and it goes up like that. Because I'm having the success on my own terms, because I know what I want and what it should be and the way things can be. And I'm willing to even let people say that's not the way it is and I don't choose that. Okay, that's fine. I'll keep doing things my way. You have things your way. And we all progress in the way that we should, if you know what I mean. So, final thoughts. Stop crying that esports isn't bigger, or using it as some lame filler to put in your own bullshit and your own operating system of BS that you're into, when you're not doing your job. You, the person watching now, you're not upvoting stuff you think's good. You're downvoting stuff you think, oh, like maybe you don't even particularly dislike. You're just being an asshole. Upvote stuff you think's good. If you're a player or a team, actually show recognition and support people in your fucking community who are working that way. Don't just suck the dick of anyone who's fucking from the mainstream. If you're actually an event organizer, how about actually paying some attention to the people there? Don't treat them like little peons. And because you yourself are then putting it in place of like, well, you're just an esports journalist, of course. You're not. Oh, are you from the mainstream? Well, roll out the fucking red carpet and let's go behind here. And oh, didn't you know he's from like Vice magazine? Whatever I don't know if they've even done anything about esports, but you see what I mean? Like, it's just a name that you have to have heard. It bewitches people. And oh my god, real. I've heard of that, and not inside esports context. So that must be real. And he must actually have some skills. And not this piece of shit guy over here who just likes the game. Pervert, like, calm down. So the point here is, don't rush to sell everything out at the lowest price, whether that's like your morals, your fucking integrity, your principles, or what you think should be, even your tastes. Like, oh, you might think Imagine Dragons is an okay band. Don't just say they're like your favourite band just because they did a fucking song and went on the League of Legends. That's just a bit lame, isn't it? It's just a bit distasteful aesthetically as a concept in the way of holding yourself as a human being. You have fucking value as a human being. Don't just give that away for nothing. Finally, support the fucking work that the actual community does. And listen, if you want to support this Harold Goldberg guy, go for it. I'm actually sure it'd probably be quite a good piece. I just don't personally, I personally wouldn't support it from the point of view that the stretch goals made no sense. So it made it seem a bit like, I can't really be sure what I'd be getting for my money here. It'd be alright. I don't think it'd be for the hardcore community. So to me, it's just not that priority. It's more the reaction of other people that's incited this sort of rant here that's now been going on for far too long. But you get my point anyway. So I thought I'd make this point. Most of the things you say that if we want esports to become bigger, that's not even fucking connected. That's not me saying retard. Has at no point in time ever made a real sponsor like, you know what, I was going to put $100,000 into that there, but if he's a mainstream person within esports and he said the word retard, then I'm pulling that out and that's going away there. That doesn't somehow counteract the work I do or the work other people do or anything. All that stuff is some bullshit that people are getting petty stuff to get angry about here rather than look at real issues like our fucking community actually limits the success of our content creators. The players within the community don't support them. The teams turn a blind eye or play favourites with them in some ridiculous fashion. The leagues themselves aren't going out of their way to put a situation forwards where, you know what, a guy who lives in Germany, so he doesn't need the travel costs, could go to an event and maybe he could produce a piece like this $5,000 piece. Maybe he's a journalism student right now. Maybe he could produce something really awesome without a lot of the cost because we just help him out and we're not even giving him the money. We're just giving him more opportunity. Don't be ridiculous with how you frame things. I think that's about it there.